Brought to you by PrayLatin.com, makers of prayer cards featuring complete English phonetic renderings of Latin pronunciations. Today we have what amounts to a Fatima call of action, coming from one of the most affected bishops by everything going on right now. And he's doing this while the German Synodal Way goes off the deep end and just flatly and completely contradicts the Catholic faith and 2,000 years of tradition in new and ever exciting ways. Perhaps Germany needs to be the subject of a Marian consecration to the Immaculate Heart of Our Lady, after the Fatima consecration is finished, of course, and in a way that is in line with explicitly called for by Our Lady, and not in some loosey-goosey way that won't accomplish what heaven commanded. But regardless of all that, what the Church is facing now is open heresy within the ranks of the prelates who have been given official recognition by Francis for their errors, while the world spirals absolutely towards chaos. So let's get into this story because all of these things are connected. Let's start with what I'm going to call here the Fatima call to action. The National Catholic Register is reporting that an archbishop in the area the world is watching closely right now has called for a worldwide novena ahead of Francis's consecration on the Feast of the Annunciation, March 25th. That would have started yesterday, but it isn't too late to participate. From the article, quote, "We are very happy by the fact that the Holy Father responded positively to the request of the bishops of the Latin Catholic Church, all its priests and all its people," said Archbishop, whose name I'm not going to try to pronounce because I would destroy his name. "For this ceremony, we want to prepare our people with a novena that will start on March 17th, he added. "We are calling all Christians in the defending country to join this novena, and we would be very grateful if the whole Church around the world would join us in prayer for this intention." The Archbishop in the interview also appeared to try to carefully navigate around the decades-long controversy over the validity of St. John Paul II's 1987 consecration to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, saying he believed it was done properly, but that it would be beneficial to repeat in order to secure peace again after the latest outbreak of war. End quote. If John Paul II's had been done correctly, we wouldn't be in this mess. That's what most traditional Catholics and Fatima observers will tell you. And if it had been valid, then, again, there'd be no need for another consecration, especially since John Paul II was only repeating and renewing that consecration done by Pius XII, and by his own admission, didn't fulfill the conditions set by Our Lady in the Fatima message. But that's another topic for another time. The weird thing about this story is that the Archbishop doesn't say what kind of novena they're doing. Is it a rosary novena? A novena of specific prayers? A Divine Mercy chaplet? The article doesn't say. So if you want to join in the spirit of this novena, which I was wrong, starts today, the 17th of March, on the Feast of St. Patrick, then offer an additional rosary on top of the one that you should be praying daily for the intentions of this bishop, and add to it that the bishops of the world all volunteered to participate in this consecration voluntarily, since that is one of the conditions of the Fatima request that hasn't been fulfilled as of yet, and there are some bishops who are joining Francis right now in doing this, which is all good news. It's nice to have a good bishop using prayer and leading the laity for a good intention like this. It sure does beat being constantly told to go out and make a mess of things. The real mess being made right now is a simple kind of mess. The bishops of Germany have been leading a push for such an obvious break from the Catholic faith that, if they're not in schism already, they soon will be. And we have another example of that I want you to contrast with that bishop who asked the laity to pray for peace. From the Catholic News Agency, we get this article. Headline: Women commissioned to confer baptisms in German Catholic dioceses. Look, the law of the Church is simple. Only a priest, deacon, or bishop can confer baptisms outside of a clear emergency or other extreme circumstance where there's a danger of death or just a need for the laity to do it. Full stop. From the article, quote, "A German Catholic diocese has commissioned 17 women to administer baptisms, citing a shortfall in the number of priests. The Diocese of Essen, in Germany's industrial Ruhr area, is the first diocese in the country to commission a group of women to administer the sacrament, reported CNA Deutsch, CNA's German language news partner. Teresa Kohlmeier, head of the Department of Faith, Liturgy, and Culture in the diocese, said the step was necessary because there were fewer priests than in the past. She added there was, quote, a great need on the part of the baptismal families for the most individual accompaniment and worship service possible." Wow. Bishop Franz Josef Overbeck of Essen explained that the decision to commission laypeople, 17 women and 1 man, for a period of 3 years was a response to a pastorally difficult situation. More than 2.5 million people live in the Essen diocese, 724,047 of whom are Catholic. It is the smallest diocese in Germany in terms of area. Canon 861 of the Code of Canon Law says, "The ordinary minister of baptism is a bishop, a presbyter, or a deacon." It adds that when an ordinary minister is absent or impeded, a catechist or another person designated for this function by the local ordinary, or in a case of necessity any person with the right intention, confers baptism licitly. Bishop Gebhard Fürst of Rothenburg-Stuttgart announced in March 2021 that he would look into the possibility of baptism by lay pastoral workers, establishing a working group. End quote. So first we had extraordinary ministers of Holy Communion, and now we have extraordinary ministers of baptism. Great. For a bishop, priest, or deacon to be impeded would require very extraordinary circumstances, none of which are covered by "We instituted modernism in the Diocese of Germany to such an extent that almost no one has faith enough to answer God's call to the priesthood." It just doesn't work that way. The Church in Germany made this mess, and now they need to clean it up. But instead of addressing the problem, which is modernism and heterodoxy broadly, they push a revolution in the Church that would have made Teilhard de Chardin blush. This is the fruit of modernism, of rampant twisting and perverting of the Catholic faith, of turning the Church into the instrument of secular powers. The heads of the Church have, over the years, dialed back evangelization efforts, to the point now that most Catholics honestly think groups outside of the Church are somehow in the Church, and not needing to be evangelized. That conversion is just, broadly speaking, no longer needed, except for meanie poo-poo-headed trads, of course. But to play devil's advocate, I'll present a more moderate take than mine. The Pillar has a piece on this phenomenon. Here's some reasoning that shows the other side of the question. That's not presented by open heretics like those bishops in Germany who just want to throw away the moral teachings of the Church. The Pillar article asks if the move by Germans is a big deal, to which the writer says the following, quote, "It's certainly novel, in a reasonably stable European diocese, for the bishop to decide to appoint extraordinary lay ministers of baptism on a stable basis. But in many parts of the world, some Catholic communities can go for months without seeing a priest, and parishes stretch across enormous territories. And these are the kinds of situations canon law has in mind when it talks about bishops appointing catechists and others to perform baptisms when the ordinary minister is absent. But some people would certainly argue that the Bishop of Essen has stretched the idea of an ordinary minister's absence. It would not normally include the decline in vocations reported by the Diocese of Essen and other German dioceses. In fact, as long as Sunday Masses are celebrated regularly in most parishes of the diocese, it would probably be hard to argue that the traditional idea of clerical absence has occurred. This is because canon law recommends that baptism ordinarily be celebrated on Sunday, or if possible, at the Easter Vigil. Every Sunday Mass and Easter Vigil has an ordinary minister of baptism present, the celebrating priest. So while there might not be as many priests in the diocese as the bishop would like, if Sunday Masses are still being celebrated, the situation would not seem to fit in with the ordinary canonical idea of absence." End quote. So I looked at the statistics for the Diocese of Essen, where this is happening. According to an official website for the Church in Germany, they have plenty of priests available because there are, quote, 42 parishes, 1 mission, 410 priests, of which 328 are diocesan and 82 religious, 79 deacons, 395 lay religious, 94 brothers, 301 sisters, and 11 seminarians as of 2018. End quote. And all of those people listed would be better to administer the sacraments than opening up to administering of the sacraments in a way that aligns with the ever-demonic values of the world. Again, extraordinary ministers of baptism. No. But, of course, this is all being done in the name of synodality. The bishops in Germany leading the Synodal Way have stated that their mission is to democratize the Catholic Church in Germany and have it be a beacon and example for the rest of the world to emulate. After all, the German Synod has explicitly stated that it wants the laity to choose the bishops of Germany, not the Pope, and that it wants the entire moral code of the Church to be tossed out because, to paraphrase Bishop Botzing, sins of a James Martin nature no longer cry out to heaven and do not separate us from God if we engage in them. He said that. I'm not making that up. So, of course, they want to make the laity the administrators of the sacraments. I mean, what else do we expect? In an article in the National Catholic Register from about a month ago, they sum this up nicely. Quote, "The Synodal Way of the Catholic Church in Germany is revealing ingrained internal divisions as well as continuing efforts to radically change church teaching and align it more closely with civil society," a cross-section of German Catholics and non-Catholics have told the Register. The latest developments, which took place at the Synodal Way's latest plenary meeting in Frankfurt, and are not binding on the Universal Church, have caused considerable concern among Catholics in Germany, who seek to remain faithful to the Church's magisterium. These doctrinally faithful Catholics, who consider themselves a small minority within Germany, are looking with alarm at what is happening, but also are noting that the fact that the Church's de facto internal schism has existed for years is now being fully revealed. The schism is coming out in all its brutality, said Bernard Muser, a founder of the lay group Neuer Anfang, New Beginning, that is critical of the Synodal Way's efforts at reform, referring to recent attacks by German bishops on Pope Benedict XVI over allegedly mishandling historical German Ted McCarrick-type issues, a claim that Benedict denies. Muser said that he also helped reveal who belongs in which camp. Such behavior, he said, is something I have never experienced in the Church. End quote. When Francis issued Traditionis Custodes, he heavily implied that traditional Catholics were crypto-schismatics. He said that, and has implied that heavily, in many public speeches in recent years, while the Germans are promoting a clear break from the moral teachings of the faith that is leading to a virtual schism among the faithful in that country. It's repulsive, but it is the reality on the ground in Germany, and there's little any of us can do about it by all appearances. Which brings me back to Fatima. The consecration will destroy all of these errors, if it is done according to the will of God as expressed by Our Lady of Fatima. Every attempt at history has been deficient in one way or another, and the really sad thing about it is this. The time to accomplish this is running short, if the alarm bells raised by secular leaders are any indication. And yet to accomplish this, it would require that the Pope do the consecration as asked, with these same German bishops participating, if they themselves are still in union with the Church, which, given what they profess to believe, appears to be an open question, made all the more complicated by Francis writing to the German bishops several months ago to congratulate them on their innovative leadership in these times, and how they need to keep up the good work. It's also tiresome, which is why praying that novena that I suggested at the start might help avert a worse chastisement than what we've already experienced thus far. So, what is the endgame for the German Synodal Way? What is their goal? What are they trying to do? What's the game plan? What do they hope to achieve? Let me know in the comments, please. And let me know if you're going to offer an extra rosary in union with the request of the bishops that I started this video of this episode of this podcast with today. It's important that we all participate, that we all do something, because this could be the most important thing that has happened in the history of the Church since Our Lady of Guadalupe, at least, if not even going back further. So we should take this seriously, we should do something, and let's begin at least by contacting our bishop and asking him to voluntarily participate in this consecration that the Pope is planning to do, and to do it voluntarily, because it has to be done with all the bishops of the world in union with the Pope. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. As always, pray for the Church. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.